on the Business Spotlight today, I've got Duncan Sinclair from Aberdeen Sports Village. Welcome, Duncan.
Welcome, thank you.
Really good to have you on. Now, Aberdeen Sports Village, it kind of does what it says on the tin, maybe, but do you want to just give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so as you quite rightly said, my name's Duncan Sinclair. I'm the Chief Exec of Aberdeen Sports Village. So in a very quick, succinct way as I possibly can muster, I'll tell you a wee bit about Sports Village first and foremost, because in many ways I'm in my dream job. You know, it's something I feel as if my career built up to this point today. So Aberdeen Sports Village was the first joint venture of its kind in the whole of the UK. And I'm fairly certain it certainly is this only joint venture of its kind in Scotland now. I think there's a university down in England that's now replicated the model that was first pioneered in Aberdeen. So it's a joint venture between Aberdeen City Council and the University of Aberdeen. They joint own the company, and they are actually shareholders in the company. It began trading in 2009, and as the name suggests, it's a big collection of very, very impressive sports facilities. And you know, I often think I would have loved to have been the fly in the wall when these two long-standing institutions actually got around the table and thought, right, let's build something with the ambition and the vision that it became Aberdeen Sports Village, because I'm sure that couldn't have been an easy vision to share, let alone realise. So yeah, to give the listeners that kind of flavour of the type of facilities, we've got the best athletics facilities, both indoor and outdoor, in Scotland. We have a full-size indoor 3G pitch, 4 squash courts, a 9-court sports hall, outdoor pitches including grass and water-based hockey, and we've got, I suppose, the jewel in the crown is an Olympic-sized aquatic centre, which is the 50-metre pool and the 25-metre diving pool, which are separate within the aquatic centre. And it was opened in 2014. So we are a not-for-profit organisation, charitable status, but we do, a percentage of our turnover is made up from the annual funding from the City Council and the University of Aberdeen, our shareholders. So that's Aberdeen Sports Village Limited in a nutshell. And
what about Duncan? What's your story then?
Yeah, so I suppose I was typical of somebody of my generation, leaving school with decent qualifications, but I really didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. In fact, my very first job was labouring in a sawmill over in rural Mid-Argyll, and it was a job that my badminton coach had given me. He was the managing director of the sawmill there. So I kind of just fell out of school into this job. Again, I went right through to the 6th year. My father was the deputy head teacher there, and gave great credit to him. He didn't put me under any pressure. He said, you'll know what you want to do when it presents itself. So then they built a sports centre attached to Lochilphead Secondary School, and I got a job in there. So that was way back in 1984, and that was my first step into, and I saw it as a job. I didn't see it as a career at that point. I just saw it as a job. I loved sport, and to me this was just a natural choice for me to make. But I also remember the first time I actually did think about it as a career was very much stimulated by a receptionist at the sports centre who was probably about a similar age as to I am now. And she pulled me aside. I'd been working there for about 3 years, and she pulled me aside and she said, look, there's a big, bad world out there. You know, the world is your oyster. You need to start to think about what you can't just keep working in this sports centre, you know. much as I enjoyed it. And that did get me, and I vividly remember that moment. Sheena Gilmer was her name. She gave me my first career advice. And
I love that. I love that. I guess everybody has probably got someone who's had such an influence on them. Do you think she ever knew that she'd had that influence on you?
Well, unfortunately, Sheena's passed away a few years ago, but I told her, I kept very much in touch with Sheena after I left Middlegale. And I often tell that story to Sheena's son and daughter, who I still remain in touch with. That in many ways she was the first pivot I made into thinking about a career. As I said, I vividly remember that conversation. So yes, I think she did know that she was very much an influence on that decision. And then my career, my first managerial job was up in Angus Council at a leisure centre in Forfar, and then I got to a point there, so I then got promoted to a managerial job in Carnoustie. But I realised that without that formal qualification, as I say, a good higher in standard grades or O grades as they were at the time, but I didn't have a formal qualification. So I took I think there'd probably been about 25, 26 at the time, took the decision to leave full-time education and go to college. It was at the time. So I went and studied in Falkirk for 2 years, came out of there with good experience, good qualifications, and then my next career move was up to the Highlands, up to the Black Isle. But I stayed in Inverness, and in my role there evolved and was fairly common at the time. It was parks and recreation. So all of a sudden I found myself not just looking after 2 or 3 sports facilities. I had caravan sites, and I even had Rosemarkie Beach shop to look after. So yeah, it was very interesting times, and I learned a huge amount when I was up there in the Highlands, up in Inverness. And then I moved to Stirling, and I was there for about 3-4 years. And then I think that a key next move for me was moving down to the Scottish Borders, where I worked again for a charitable company, Border Sport and Leisure Trust, as it was at the time, and I was the deputy CEO there. And again, not only was I keen to work with the chief exec, who I didn't know, but I'd heard of. He was a young chief exec, and I thought, yeah, I could see myself working with him. And I liked the idea of working in the Borders. I also liked the idea of having deputy CEO in my CV. So I had a great time down there. And again, Ewan Jackson, who's still the chief exec of a slightly evolved organisation down there, was a great help to my career. He became a friend, but he also encouraged me to as he put it, I had more in the locker. I had at least another move in me, and that I should aim for the top job in an organisation. So then that took me up to Aberdeen, and not the job I'm currently in. I became the Deputy Director of Operations at a kind of sister organisation called Sport Aberdeen. And then the job came up at the Sports Village, and that's how I arrived here. So I credit a lot of my career to other people. The other thing I should have added, when I was down in the Borders, I went to university, albeit still holding down a full-time job to study my BA in business, which I thoroughly enjoyed, because it was not just studying a subject. I very much related to what I was studying to the job that I was doing and the business that I was helping to lead. So that was a really positive experience for me as well, down in the Borders. And then, as I say, the job came up in the Sports Village, and I just thought, right, I have to throw my hat into the ring.
How long have you been at the Sports Village then?
So that's 7.5 years I've been at the Sports Village. So I would like to think that, never say never, but I'd like to think this is my last full-time job, because I do look at other similar, in my sector, I do look at other organisations in Scotland and think, I'm working in the best organisation. I'm absolutely, that this is the place I want to be. Because I do still feel very close, although I lead an organisation that's got 200 staff and a turnover of broadly 6 million. I'm still very close to I feel very close to the customers and the athletes and the university students. I don't feel detached in any way, so probably go back to, feels like a bit of a dream job for me.
Fantastic. What are the challenges then that come with that, that number of staff and that size of organisation? The amount, I was looking on the website, actually, you got 1 million visitors a year, I think,
Yeah.
and nearly 10,000 members. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So I would say the biggest challenge, and again, this will probably resonate with your listeners right across Scotland, the UK, but also particularly for those in the Northeast. The first big challenge I came across, which was very early into my tenure with ASB, was the oil and gas downturn in the Northeast, which meant that there was many jobs left, and the membership at ASB, so that 10,000 that you just quite rightly quoted, it dropped to below 6,000 in a matter of months.
Yeah.
Which we were just hemorrhaging members. That was a real challenge. And in terms of the health and fitness sector, Aberdeen's a very competitive city. There are a number of operators up here even to this day. So that was a really challenging time. Obviously, COVID was a challenge for all of us.
How do you overcome challenges like that? How did you get through the oil downturn and COVID?
Well, from the oil and gas downturn, we looked at our membership packages. So we tried to make it simplistic. We had too many options available for customers to choose from. So we started to move in a direction very much that the commercial sector will do, which is, you join and you get to use everything, so it's not, you don't just join the aquatic centre or you join the gym, you join ASB and you get to use, a kind of almost all you can eat sporting buffet. It's all within the price. So that was one of the major change that we made to tackle with that. COVID was very different because we had the 2 national lockdowns, which combined the 2, that was 8 months we were closed for, over 2 of our financial years. So although the job retention scheme was in place, furlough was in place, and that was a huge support, it did mean we had to eat into our reserves. And when we were allowed to open, you'll probably all remember there were some things we were still not allowed to do, and some of that was indoor sport. Or that you still had to socially distance. So I'll give you an example of that, Brenda, where a class that could normally hold 40 people, we were down to 20 people. So of course that has an effect on customer satisfaction as well as income levels. So that was a really difficult period for us to move through, but we did, and based very much on customer loyalty and working very hard around our marketing and our promotional activities, keeping our prices as keen as we possibly could afford to do, and that we started to build things back up. And fairly recently, there are a couple of measures where we've actually traded and performed better than we ever have. And again, one example of that would be what we call our Evergreen members. So the 60+ market, they, for the first time, we breached the 1,000 members of the 60+. And we think one of the reasons for that is people are now taking their health very seriously, and they're prepared to pay for that. And particularly the older generation, which I'm including myself in, we value that. And, the case for being physically active really doesn't need to be made anymore. Everybody knows that you need to use your body. Doesn't necessarily mean you need to be a member of a health club. Clearly, we would prefer that. But even just getting out, walking, a game of golf, out in the hills, through nature, it's so good for your physical health. But as important, this is very good for your mental health as well, and getting that right balance. So we're finding people are prioritising that. But the next challenge, if I may just move on to the one that we're facing at the moment, which the whole of society is facing, is the cost of living crisis. And for us particularly, it's the increase in energy prices. So from the 1st of April this year, our energy prices are pretty much doubled, which has put a huge, unprecedented strain on our budgets. But again, that's just something we have to deal with as best we possibly can.
Yeah, I guess it's a big facility you've got there. I dread to think what the numbers are on that bill, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that with you, Brenda, and of course anybody who's listening to this is, in a normal year, we would, when I say energy, I'm going to say utilities, which includes our heat, which we draw from the community heating system, and electricity and water charges. So in a normal year, or just before this crisis, we would pay about £800,000 for the utilities bill on an annual basis. That's doubled. So the year that we are just approaching, and our financial year starts in the 1st of August, that's going to double. So that's going to take us up to about 1.6 million. That is a huge challenge for any organisation, no matter how good your reserves are. You can't pass all that cost on to the customer. You can't absorb it into your revenue budgets. So again, it's just trying to map out a way to get out of this current crisis as best you can.
I see some facilities closing down, either private or public facilities are just closing down because of it, aren't they?
Yes, that's quite correct. Again, it's a bit of a crisis in our sector. Swimming pools, particularly standalone swimming pools, which will always run at a cost. They're never an income, or the vast majority of them are not income generators. There'll always be that net loss. They're closing at a frightening, worrying pace right through the UK at the moment. But I have to say, it's not just the UK. There are some real serious challenges right across Europe. So it is an issue. There's this race to make swimming pools much more energy efficient than they currently are. So I'm hoping that the technology will be available because swimming particularly, I think we all relate to it, that it's almost a rite of passage to be taught how to swim. Parents and grandchildren coming and seeing their children swimming, when you go on holiday, the fun that can be had. We're not all going to be top class swimmers like Hannah Miley, who was based at ASV, but we can certainly all, we can all swim and have great fun that goes with that. And of course, it can save your life as well. So it's a very important sport for the world to really make sure there are enough swimming pools to go around. But there is an inevitability, particularly the older swimming pools, standalone swimming pools, that they
less efficient, I guess, as well. So
correct. Subsidy.
What about so you said you've got a 200 strong team. What are the challenges, or what have been your learnings around managing big teams then?
Probably around change. And, we've got a lot of young staff. So like in any organisation, big or small, change is the constant in life, and we can all adopt change management principles and high levels of good communication. But one of the things, no matter how good and thorough the process, and it always should be good and thorough, you get staff who just don't like the look of that change. That's always a challenge for us. We do employ a lot of young staff who are sometimes not with us for a great length of time if they don't have the opportunity to advance within ASB. Understandably, as I did myself, you look further afield. So that's the biggest challenge we have at the moment. We're having to go through some change in how we do things, why we do things, even challenging things that we've done in the past. Why do we do them? And that's always going to be a challenge for any organisation, as I say, big or small. And the other end of the staffing age spectrum, older staff as well, sometimes think, well, do you know what, that this change is just not for me. I'm at a stage where I can either go part-time somewhere else. I mean, we've seen that in many other sectors. There's also still an element of burnout after COVID. I'm not sure we've really fully recovered from that. And I don't just refer to my own sector, I refer to NHS as a very good example. I can also speak, albeit slightly anecdotally, about the teachers in the UK. Just that they had a really tough time, as did, of course, the pupils through COVID, and they've just not really had a chance to recover from that. So, and I think there's an element of that, particularly staff who are been right through that and are still with the same organisation, and you're going from one challenge to the next, one crisis to the next. You have to be vigilant for burnout and for mental health.
Mm. Yeah. So what do you do to help your staff? To make sure that mental health's not an issue, poor mental health's not an issue, and burnout's not happening.
Yeah. So we encourage all our staff to be physically active.
Really?
It is. So there's an element of practice what we preach within our staff. So we've got we can provide a membership, a free membership to our staff, and there's a high uptake on that. We also trained 30 mental health first aiders fairly recently, very much with a view to making sure we had right across the staffing spectrum, we had identified people that if anybody was struggling or indeed noticed somebody else was struggling, which is probably the more likely one. I think there's still that, and I absolutely relate to it myself. It sometimes takes quite a bit before you can say, look, I'm struggling here. I could do with just a wee bit of help or a wee bit of support in some shape or form. That's quite a big conversation for anybody to have, even somebody as experienced as I am, let alone perhaps somebody who's new to your organisation is still trying to find their feet. So we trained 30 mental health first aiders. We've identified them across the organisations, encouraging any member of staff who's struggling to or wants to have a chat on anything around that subject, that they can approach somebody. So that's probably the two main things we do. We also have staffing groups that are always looking at ways in which staff can be supported, even through social gatherings as well. So it's not just the being physically active. A big part of promoting good mental health is to make sure you don't isolate yourself. You're still connected with friends and family and work colleagues, because I think we all know that if your mental health is not great, there is that natural tendency to withdraw, right? Which is not the best thing to do, although it's a natural almost instinct. So if anybody notices within the staff that perhaps somebody is a wee bit more withdrawn, a bit quieter than they normally are, encourage that conversation. Just check in everything's okay, and that's working very well.
Good, great strategy. So we've talked about the challenges. What are the biggest opportunities in your field over the that you see in the next few years?
Yeah, well, without a doubt, it's born. Biggest opportunity is born out of the challenges, and that's for ASB to collaborate more with like-minded organisations, particularly around the health sector, also with clubs, organisations, and customers, just to collaborate more. Because some of the things that we have done in the past, where we had a direct delivery of some public services, we won't be able to do going forward. However, I don't see that as a negative. Any gaps that come out of that, with ASB slightly withdrawing from some of the services, that gap will be filled by clubs, organisations, and working differently within the, as I say, particularly the health sector. Trying to get that. Prevention is better than the cure. So where can we work with other organisations? A good example is exercise referral schemes, that not just your local GP can refer somebody to ASB for, if you like, a course of exercise, but other organisations that we work with, maybe some cancer charities, where whether it's preparing for treatment or indeed after treatment, there's a growing evidence that just simply being active to a point can help, and clearly that's where ASB can come in. So without a doubt, the opportunity is collaborating with other organisations and like-minded people.
I love that. I've been thinking all the way through what we've been talking, and yours is a different organisation because it's part of the council as well as the university, and a lot of people that I'm talking to are from businesses, just purely business. And I wonder if that, because you're I've lost my words there, but because of the type of organisation you've got, you're maybe looking a bit more to the sort of collaboration than a lot of businesses are. And I think that would be a really good lesson to get from the chat that we've had, is that, look to where you can collaborate. It's not all about competition, it's about collaboration, isn't it? Yeah.
I totally agree with that, Brenda. And you mentioned there about business. And that's the other thing I should have mentioned and actually stressed in terms of the collaboration. So we've got two projects that we are delivering. So ASB is situated in what we call an SIND area, so social index for multiple deprivation, so a hard to reach community. We've got two projects. I won't name the companies, but big companies here in the Northeast who have financially contributed to projects that we simply wouldn't have been, and sustainable projects that ASB would not have been able to deliver without that collaboration. And we're making a real difference in school children's lives, allowing them access to ASB. One of the projects involved feeding some of the school children, getting a good breakfast, and then taking part in some sport, teaching them how to swim. Now, we would not have been able to do that going forward without that collaboration, and the collaboration with the business community as well. I also remember one, when I first moved up to Aberdeen, many people said to me, oh, well, it's oil and gas, and, businesses and companies will be falling over themselves to sponsor you. And that's not the case. But because like any other business, if you're going to sponsor something or contribute financially to another organisation, you want to know what you're going to get for it. So recently, where we've, if you like, slightly changed that collaboration, is to say, well, here is something we think we can do with you if we partner with you, and here is the difference we will make. Would you like to partner with us? And the answer is generally yes. So it's not just a case of, well, we'll put your name up in the walls here, or we'll project it onto the aquatic centre. It's not many organisations are interested, or businesses are interested in that. But businesses are interested in making a difference in their community.
It's their corporate social responsibility, isn't
Absolutely.
it? If we can provide breakfast to little kids that are not going to get breakfast otherwise, then that makes a big difference, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and in one of these companies, in fact, I will mention it was global. They almost didn't want the recognition for that. They just wanted to make a difference. Now they do get recognition, and they're now very proud of what they've helped deliver. But we are noticing that companies just want to make a difference. They do want to use some of their resource to make a difference in communities, and that's great for us.
Yeah, and great that you're not just helping people's health, and you're not helping clubs and whatever to have a location in order to do their training and whatever, but you're making a difference to these people in the community, and that's
absolutely.
Admirable.
That too.
Yeah. So I could talk to you all day, and the editor will be giving me a row because that's gone way over the time I'm supposed to I was supposed to make an interview last. So is there anything else that you would like to add before we finish?
I don't think so. I think if there's again, if there's any advice, very humble advice I can provide, or even just comment, is I've always been very fortunate to be surrounded by people, mentors before they were even called mentors, people who have influenced me in a very positive way. Even the bosses I've had who were not brilliant bosses, knowing what I know now, I always learned something from them. So I credit. Yes, I chased the opportunities, and I bettered myself in terms of college and university, albeit at a later stage. But I give great credit to my career, to others, including the people I work with just now. I think all the success that comes through ASB is generally down to the others, the great team that I've got here. So I've never lost sight of that. I can bask in the success of ASB and be very, very proud of it. But the real hard work is done by the staff I surround myself with, who are first class. So that's probably a good point to leave this on.
It's not done on your own. Surround yourself with good people. I love
Absolutely.
it. Duncan, thank you so much for being on the Business Spotlight. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Not at all, Brenda. It was a pleasure speaking to you. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.